Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 8:06. This is our fourth hour of our 4-hour program. And if you missed the first three, well, that's okay. You can subscribe to our podcast wherever you like to hear podcasts. We're on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and I don't know, wherever else they're doing podcasts. It's a great condensation of our radio program, including our interviews broken out separately. It's a good podcast, and you should grab it so you can be up to speed on everything we talk about every morning. Coming up in 30 minutes, we're going to touch base with Frank Ray. He's a country music artist, and he's in town celebrating National Police Week, as we all are. We've been discussing it quite a bit this week. But joining us right now is the former governor of Maryland. It's Bob Ehrlich. And Governor Ehrlich, you're speaking to two Marylanders here on WMAL. Me, Larry O'Connor, and Patrice Onwuka. So let's fix this state, shall we?
How much time do you have?
That's fair.
Sorry.
But
Patrice,
listen, you as former governor and a keen political observer about good governance, you have been warning about the cliff that Westmore has been running our state over, and the chickens came home to roost last night. As Moody's downgraded Maryland's bond rating, first time in over 5 decades. We have lost our AAA rating, and Westmore is blaming Donald Trump, Governor.
Well, it's the fiscal leadership blaming the president. So last year, Wall Street warned us, outside economies warned us, members warned us, businesses warned us. You have unfunded education mandate, a gigantic one. You have new hires and over-budget transportation projects and Medicaid bleeding as usual and previous wealth flight from high taxes and high regulation. So what's the plan? What do? They hit the rainy day fund, they offload on the subdivisions, and they pass another tax increase, and they claim victory. And in the process, no introspection and blaming the president. What a formula. What a formula for success. It's hard to watch, and this is a big deal. This is one of the most angst-ridden days of my life was going to Wall Street for the first time, new Republican governor, first time in 40 years, with the fiscal leadership, looking at almost $2.5 billion of deficit, and Wall Street expected me to have a plan. I've never been so uptight in my life, to tell you the truth, and Republican governors, Democratic governors over the years know this and knew this. But again, you have a very hard left General Assembly that doesn't help. And here we are. And we're staring at a special session in the fall with even more tax increases.
Well, sir, I'm glad you brought up the tax increases. I think it was, appalling when we saw the tax increases on small businesses doing business to business. I can't help but think that this is forcing a lot of local small businesses either to close their doors or to flee to nearby states where it's certainly not as anti-business.
Patrice, you can quantify that. You're absolutely correct. The priorities of the General Assembly are just fascinating to watch. They prioritize illegal criminal migrants and new spending programs and new taxes and way over budget transportation projects. And left behind, obviously, are small businesses and taxpayers and crime victims. And again, very little introspection to go with all this. Nobody's perfect. I wasn't perfect. No governor's perfect. But you saw the storm clouds, and you didn't act. And then you point fingers at the president. Give me a break. These numbers, what we're talking about, all this was baked in the pie. This has nothing to do with the president. Now, I have to tell you, this coming special session in the fall, that will have been relevant to the president and what he's done the first few months. But all this, the president had nothing to do with it. Nothing.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just noted that Wall Street and businesses were warning about this a year ago. That's well before President Trump won the election. In fact, Westmore did his darndest to try to keep him from even being on the ballot in some states. So, Governor, it sounds to me like there's no Democrat in Maryland who is willing to confront the reality here. They're all on board. So what's it going to take here to get new leadership in Annapolis? And at the very least, I know that it's hard because of districting to actually get a majority for Republicans in the legislature, but we could get a governor. It's happened. It just happened recently, and you're living proof of it as well. So what's the forecast
governors
here?
are important, but governors come and go. Fiscal leadership is equally important. Nobody ever talks about that. So to answer the question, of course, that's important, of course. But there are too many suburban swing seats now held by Democrats who vote this way, and they come back after session and they go to the Chamber of Commerce luncheon and they talk moderate and it all sounds all great. And then you look back at their voting record and it's not so great. And it's negligent. And so, look, I live in the realm of the possible. I'm a Maryland Republican. You two are as well. and so what you try to do is what you can do. You look at these seats. You try to recruit good candidates. You try to fund them. You try to train them. And you got to win. So what this means in the long term, nobody really knows now. We're in uncharted territory. We haven't. This was the last 50 years. And, again, Republican, Democrat didn't matter. Governors of both parties understood and understand how important this is. And the taxpayers are just digesting it now. But this means a lot more dollars in the long term, obviously. Your debt's more expensive.
Yes.
You're now just another state. You're not one of the – we used to brag. Last week we were bragging, one of 16. Now there's 15. It's not Maryland. So this is a big deal. It hurts us. And whether it becomes, Larry, that political issue in this next cycle, we'll see. It certainly should.
Well, can you speak to us a little bit more about the special session coming up in the fall? What is expected? I mean, you mentioned tax increases, but is this in response to job cuts from federal workers? Can you expound?
Yeah. Well, it's out there. You talk to the members. They're denying it, and then they're saying it might happen, it might not happen. The fact of it is storm clouds are here. It's raining. So, again, you can only raid the rainy day fund so much. You can only offload on the subdivision so much. You can only pass another tax increase so much. And that's, quite frankly, without the introspection, without the structural redesign that Wall Street expects, that the taxpayers have a right to expect, you're just going to have more of the same. So, again, it's hitting Maryland. And I suspect you're going to have that special session, and you're going to hear about new tax increases. There's a whole long list of tax increases. You saw the reports this session, and it's ordering a la carte. We'll take A, B, and C, and we'll leave D, E, F for the next special session. So, again, we are in the barrel here, and we'll see what happens. But without the sort of structural redesign that needs to occur in Maryland, this is just going to continue to reoccur, especially the unfunded mandates on the education end, these huge transportation projects that don't pay for themselves. This is a bad dream. It's a recurring bad dream. We've seen this movie before, and again, we need an election to fix it. Whether that occurs, who knows?
We need to communicate also to Maryland voters, those who helped put you in office and helped put Larry Hogan in office, how this affects them. It sounds esoteric. It sounds very sort of, we lost our AAA bond rating. But people need to realize how that affects the state and how that affects their personal finances over the short term. That is
really the point. That's the underlying goal here. Rainy day fund, what's that? You're offloading on the subdivision. What does that mean? These moves have real repercussions. It means less money in the taxpayer pocket is what it really means long term.
I've already tried to cajole you to run, and you use the cop-out that your wife is so domineering that she refuses to allow you to do it, which I think is a heck of a beta message, Governor.
Where did she get that bad rap?
You gave it to her. But Larry Hogan has been very active and very public in his criticism of his successor, Wes Moore. Have you had conversations with Governor Hogan about whether he may throw his hat in and run for a third term?
I have not.
If you had, would you tell me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have nothing to hide. This is not. As I said, my focus, to the extent it remains in Maryland, is going to be helping some of these really strong candidates we've had and will have this cycle in these marginal seats that
honestly,
should go are.
I appreciate that because, frankly, one of my criticisms of Governor Hogan is he didn't do enough of that. He won, but he didn't do enough to grow his party, I think, while he was governor when he had the chance. But you don't need to comment on that. But let me ask you, is there anyone else?
On that.
Is there anyone else who could be a successful candidate against Wes Moore, or is it really Larry Hogan?
I don't know at this point is the honest answer.
All right. But it seems like obviously there's systemic changes that need to be made here, and that has to do with the makeup of the legislature. But the short-term solution, at the very least, to stop the bleeding, needs to be a new governor.
Yeah, it's the makeup of the legislature, and it's a restructure with regard to the fiscal realities of your state, especially with a new national administration that most likely means less dollars coming to Maryland's coffers. Right. We've had this conversation in the past. When you're so reliant on the federal government, and you have been forever, and everyone has said, don't become that so reliant on the federal government, but you just didn't pay attention over decades now. And now finally you're paying the price for it. Lack of planning, lack of structure, lack of interest, negligence, and that's how monopolies operate. They don't have to care because they don't have to care.
That's right. And how pathetic as a governor of Maryland or Virginia to sit back and just say, wow, we got all these federal jobs and all this federal money. So in other words, you're relying on the other 49 states to do your heavy lifting for you. It's pathetic. All right, Governor, we got to leave it there.
Virginia has a lot of federal employees, and they're not hurting like we are.
That's right.
Bingo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Someone has to explain
Bingo.
why everything's okay in Virginia and Maryland is hurting like this. Thanks, Governor Ehrlich. Always good to talk with you, sir.
Take care.
It is 8:18.